We now come to another maiden, Bob Seeley.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. I want to say what a great privilege it is to follow the honourable member for Clacton, but such was the brilliance of his speech that, frankly, my heart rather sank. I also want to say, actually, that I'm genuinely humbled by listening to some of the wonderful speeches. The lady from Cronantwich, Ayrshire, our colleague from Ayrshire, our colleague from Redditch, and perhaps most movingly from North East Derbyshire, who really brought home why we are in this place. And our silence was actually listening to you, so thank you. I think I'm going to be supporting this bill, Mr. Speaker. Although I have to say, any bill relating to tourism which encourages anyone to go anywhere apart from the Isle of Wight seems to suffer from what our philosophical front bench would call an a priori flaw. However, my constituents are as generous as they are understanding, and I'm sure that they will allow me to support this otherwise very sensible bill. Mr. Speaker, let me also pay tribute to my predecessor. Andrew Turner was a kind man. He was a good listener, attentive to his constituents, and held in very high regard by many of them. He worked hard for our island for 16 years, and I wish him a long and contented and happy retirement. Representing the Isle of Wight, we call it the island, and I apologise if I refer to it as such. Representing the island is for me a labour of love. It is my patch of England. I've loved it ever since I was a knee-high to a grasshopper, and it is close to my heart. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it is a special place in our nation's heart as well, serving as a source for inspiration for islanders, for visitors, and for our nation's greatest artists. Turner's first great work was for the Royal Academy was A Fisherman at Sea in the Solent, with the Needles as a moonlit backdrop. The poet Alfred Lord Tennyson settled here, and you hear our sounds and you understand our sense of place in his work. If you listen to the seawater today rushing off the stones at Allen Bay, and you'll understand the line in Maud, now to the scream of a maddened beach dragged down by the wave. Swinburne and Keats wrote here, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever," in Endymion. One of Keats's greatest lines was inspired by visits to Shanklin and to Carisbrooke. The wonderful eccentric Edward Lear tutored Queen Victoria at Osborne, the Bonchurch watercolourists painted an vintner, Julia Margaret Cameron, wonderful feminist, pioneered portrait photography at Dimbola Lodge, and the Pre-Raphaelites hung out in Freshwater. And today we remain a home for many island artists, as well as cultural and sporting events of world renown. We have a special place, Mr. Speaker, in science too. We had the world's first telegraph station, the hovercraft and the seaplane built here, and the Blue Streak missile system. What a great name for a missile system. The Blue Streak missile system was testified from the Needles. And today the island's experts produce some of the most sophisticated radars in the world for the Royal Navy. The honourable member for Spelthorne eloquently assured us a fortnight ago, Mr. Speaker, that he was still thrusting. I'm sure of it, but let me remind the House that our Thrust 2 jet-engined supercar, built largely on the island, won and held the world land speed record for our nation for over a decade at some 633 miles an hour. So, Mr. Speaker, on the Isle of Wight, even our thrusting is world-class. And from science to pseudoscience, Karl Marx was a regular visitor, a point I may have to make should the Right Honourable member for Islington North ever come to power. Although if the victory last month was any harbinger of the future, let us wish the honourable friends opposite many more such victories in the years to come. On a more serious note, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I mention our arts and science not to provide a potted history lesson or to express my love for my constituency, which I hope is self-evident, but because that is what we need for our future. We need again to embrace art and science and technology and innovation and education to inspire and to enrich and to employ. Our island is special in many ways, but our wealth has not always been of a financial kind. And there is a perception that sometimes Whitehall overlooks us. In the 1990s, the government promised to the Isle of Wight and to the Scilly Isles to study the extra costs of being an island. Now, sadly, that promise came to nothing, but those costs are recognised in Scotland through the Special Islands Needs Allowance, which provides an uplift in funding for some half a dozen councils with Scottish Island seats. Mr. Speaker, I believe that we need a better deal for our island, and it's not just a question of money, although every little helps. And I will fight for extra spending on health and education. But it's about islanders working with government to generate ideas for the public good, and government working with us and being keen to listen. And I know there are good examples of when it is doing it, and I wish to encourage more. We need to embrace the knowledge economy and higher education. I look forward to working with the DOE and universities to provide opportunities for such engagement. We need to continue to drive all education standards on the island, and I will continue to fight for the future of the Sandown Bay School, and I look forward to government's continuing support. Second, sir, our cultural offer is getting stronger. We have the wonderful Isle of Wight Festival. I think it was Rod Stewart who topped the bill this year, part of a Tartan revival in music and clearly in politics as well. We have the Literary Festival, wonderful Literary Festival. We have the cutting-edge Ventnor Fringe Festival, and look out Edinburgh. However, let us look, I would wish to look to work with culture ministers and institutions to find out how they can help us improve our museum offer and possibly attract a major gallery to the island to help with year-round cultural tourism. Third, I look forward to engaging with Sport England, trade and investment departments to work with our high-tech sailing industry and the sailing clubs of Cowes and others to ensure that the town of Cowes remains the centre of the sailing world and also becomes a global centre for disabled sailing, an important move which would have both practical and moral implications. I was privileged enough last month to meet the captain of our national blind sailing team, prepping for their World Championships, and I wish Lucy and her inspiring team all the very best. Fourth, we need to work with the DWP and organisations such as Help the Aged and our wonderful Mountbatten Hospice for the island to become a national leader in ensuring quality of life for those in later life, combining health and social care, voluntary and state support to enrich life. And on transport, we need to ensure the future of the Island Railway Line, to improve our cycling routes, making us Britain's leading cycling destination, and we need to continue to engage with the ferry firms to provide a better ferry service. And let me be clear, while nationalisation did great good in the 80s and 90s nationally, the privatisation of our ferries was not such a success. I don't have all the answers, but I know that we should not have started from this point, and I am uncomfortable with the levels of debt that Red Funnel and Whitelink have, debt which islanders, who are not the richest people in this country, have to help subsidise in order to cross the Solent. And finally, I welcome this government's commitment to social housing and starter housing, absolutely and from the bottom of my heart. I find it difficult to explain to my fellow islanders why rich property developers were able to build houses that most of my constituents could not afford. We do not need large-scale projects which are heartily disliked by many islanders and which do significant cumulative damage to our precious landscape on which much of our tourism, which accounts for half of our economy, depend. We do need, and we will absolutely support and work with government to build affordable, genuinely affordable projects to provide homes for islanders. Our island plan should reflect this. For my islanders, Mr. Speaker, housing is hope, especially for younger ones. Working with many others, our Chamber of Commerce, our Council, our excellent tourism team, voluntary groups and individuals, we will present ideas for a brighter future for our island. And nationally, I want this government, with its laudable aims of social justice, of hope, of meritocracy, of opportunity for all, values which are inherent or were inherent in our manifestos and are absolutely inherent in our hearts, but we sadly failed to translate during the campaign. I want those principles, I want those aims, I want those values, those aspirations for my fellow islanders and for our nation. And let us deliver real change and real hope in the next few years and set an example, whether it's economic or moral or political, that we are the natural party of government. Mr. Speaker, I will finish very shortly, and thank you for your patience in listening to me, sir. Mr. Speaker, my fellow islanders deserve nothing but the best, and I will do my best to give them the voice that they deserve. Some people, like the member for North East Derbyshire, have explained far more eloquently than I do why we are here. But I will battle for my island. I can't promise to win every battle, but I will fight every battle on their behalf for as long as I have the honour of serving in our Parliament what Wordsworth called that delightful island. Thank you.
Stephen